brand on social media, hosted by MAPS coach Deana Watson. Before I kick it over to Deana, I just have 3 quick announcements. Please note this meeting is being recorded. I'll share the link in the chat momentarily to our MAPS YouTube channel, where the recording will be available within 24 hours. Currently, everyone is on mute. However, we do value group participation, so we ask if you have any questions for Deana, please type them into the chat box. She'll address them as best as possible throughout the session. Following the meeting, if you have any questions about today's call or any other coaching programs, please email us at fasttrack, FASTTRACK@kw.com. That's all for me. Deana, the floor is yours.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks for everyone for playing along with my little game while we got started. I know it can be boring sometimes to sit in here and wait for these things to get going while everybody gets in the waiting room. So I hope you had a little fun. Anybody that is from Miami, you won. Anyone from Canada, you also won. Everybody in between, I'm sorry, there's no consolation prize, and I'm sorry that you're cold. We've been under ice the last few days, and I just sent my kid back to school this morning. I'm so pumped about that. I'm sure some of you are there with me, and some of you are thankful that you live in Florida. So there we go. If you need anything, my email address was just put in the chat box. I want to make sure that we take a minute to let everybody see that. If you need to copy and paste it, it'll also be on the screen here in a minute. But first and foremost, it's Friday, y'all. And most of the time, we don't host classes on Fridays. And yet, I wanted to see how it worked. And y'all are going to show up in a big way. We have almost 1,000 people registered for this on a Friday. So I'm pretty pumped about that. Today, we're going to talk about the principles and the components of building a brand on social media that I would call is unshakable. Of course, you guys, this is going to have to continue your learning in this area beyond this one class. There's literally no way to teach you everything that you need to know about this in a 30 to 45 minute session. And yet I'm here just to get you started and get you thinking about what you're looking to do in the future. To give you a little bit of info about me, if it matters to you, my name is Deana. A lot of people call me Deana. If I'm where my husband's from in New Mexico, it's Deana. Either way, my name is actually Deana, and I'm a MAPS mastery coach as well as a group coach for MAPS, which means I teach courses like this, but I also coach one-on-one. I'm the founder of a team out in North Carolina that is all military spouse owned and operated. I'm also the community leader of KW Military alongside a partner of mine that's also a veteran. My husband is active duty in the U.S. Army Special Forces and is actually doing some fun stuff right now. And I just told him good luck before we started this call. So he's very much in the life. As you heard earlier, I've got a kid. I'm a boy mom. He's 5. Life is a little crazy right now. And I am a dog lover and a brand enthusiast. All things social media and branding are kind of my jam, which also to you could mean I'm a little OCD, because I am. So I have 3 objectives for you guys today. One thing I want you to know is what I'm looking to give you is at least one thing that you can add or change or adjust in your business from this call. I don't that you walk out knowing like so many things that you've never heard before in your life. Sometimes we just need to be reminded. And yet I do want you to take one thing out of this course that, or out of this call today that you can take into your business and make some changes. So number 1, we're going to talk about getting an understanding of the main components of a strong brand on social media. One thing we're not going to talk about in this course, but I've done 2 other calls this month on it, is what do you actually do to define your messaging? So that's not a part of today very much, but we have those recordings on YouTube if you want to go watch them. I did them earlier this month. Number 2, we're going to either define or reevaluate your brand strategy. And number 3, show you at least 6 things that you need to do immediately to get into the game of social media if you are not already. Or if you are, what are the things that you can do to bump it up a little bit? Every course I teach on this, I give the 6 foundational principles that I would like to think are the things you have to be willing to do in order to excel in the social media space. So these are foundational, but they're also commitments. So what I'm going to ask of you is that going forward, that you keep these 6 things in your mind as commitments that you have to have with yourself in order to actually do this at a high level. Throughout this whole 30, 45 minutes, however long we're here, normally they're 45, but we might get done a little early. We'll see how it goes. If you have questions, put it in the chat box. You can also email me at the end if you have like specific questions about your own stuff and maybe I would need to look at something to answer it. But please use the chat box. I'll stop in about 20 minutes and answer whatever questions are coming in. I'm not looking at it as it comes up. All right, number one, the one commitment that you would have to make is to define your plan. Are you going to use social media to meet new people? And is that what your brand is based off of? Or are you using it to strengthen relationships you have, or to strengthen relationships that you have with your sphere? The other option is, are you going to use it to grow your sphere and grow your presence by paying for ads, buying leads, things like that are also an option. Number two, you have to commit to being authentic. The worst thing you can possibly do is to show up on social media acting like someone that you are not. That also means looking like someone that you are not. I shot content earlier for a group I manage. I didn't have a single stitch of makeup on. I was literally just rolling out of like getting back from dropping my kid off at school. But I have a commitment to that group that I put content in every day. So no matter what I look like, that's what they get. Number three, be consistent. The other thing that you absolutely have to commit to doing if you're building any kind of brand on social media is to be consistent and show up pretty much daily in some way. You don't have to have these professional videos shot where you've got all of it figured out every day, but you do have to commit to being there every single day. Number four, you have to commit to defining your target audience. I say this because you can't solve everyone's problems. You cannot solve everyone's problems. And to be honest, most of us, if we give ourselves the space to think about it, we actually like solving a very specific set of problems. So if you're taking notes, you might write down, what specific set of problems do I enjoy solving? And then you reverse engineer your audience that way. Okay, who has these problems? Or you can do what I've done and what a lot of people do is they already know the type of client they want to work with, and then they just go figure out what problems they have, which leads us to number five. Once you've defined your audience, you have to figure out what are their pain points. So I'm going to give you my own personal example just to help with the juices flowing in your mind. My number four, my target audience for a long time, I thought was the military as a whole. I live in a military community. I always have since I started in real estate. And I thought that I serve the military community. And the more I really thought about it, and the more my branding kind of sucked and our messaging kind of stunk for a long time, the more I realized that I actually have an audience that is showing up as the military spouse community. So my audience for my team and my messaging and our branding became very centric around the military spouse. Now I bring that up because number five, if I'm trying to figure out what the pain points are for a military service member, who I thought my audience was, that's very different than the pain points of a military spouse. The military spouse has pain points that are beyond whatever the transaction is. They're relocating from somewhere else. They might have children. What are the daycares they need to check into? Who are the pediatricians that are well known in the area? Where are the parks? What groups could they join? Those are their pain points. They're relocating their whole life, right? So you have to think about who your audience is and then figure out their pain points. And then number six, what that leads to is the last commitment to branding. Your branding and your messaging and your posts should all be geared around one of the things you see on the screen, ending with what is the plan that you have that will help them fix their problem. A lot of us get into real estate with a big ego and a superhero complex. I hope that for this call, you can drop both of them because you're not the hero in the story, they are. And the more that you can realize that they are their own hero, you are simply the guide to that resolution, you will start to see how this unfolds for you in a much more impactful way. So you're not solving their problems. You have a plan or a process or a system or something that is solving their problems. But when you can figure out what audience you have and the problems that they're dealing with, the messaging and the branding on social media gets really easy because it all becomes about solving their problems and building trust. So before we get started today, I want you guys to take a screenshot of this. These slides will not be emailed to you, but of course you can screenshot the whole thing if you want to. I want you to stop for a minute and commit to these 6 things. No matter how big or small your branding is, no matter how great at this you are or how you're starting today and you don't know anything, these are the 6 things that you have to remember to continue to do over and over and over and over and over, day in and day out, or your brand starts to decline. Another thing that you have to commit to before we get into the 5 components. Number 1, we know there are very few things that actually lead to success in social media, online strategy, branding, et cetera, et cetera. Number 1, you have to time block to plan the plan. So I'm a coach at MAPS. I've been a coach at MAPS for almost 6 years now, actually. And the one thing that has driven me crazy in the last half of that is how coaches, as coaches, we talk to people about time blocking. If you've ever been told to time block by someone in the chat box, I want you to put me, just write I have or me or whatever. If you've ever heard someone tell you to succeed, you have to time block, I want you to put it in the chat box right now, however you want to. Okay, well, here's what they don't tell you, especially when it comes to marketing and social media and branding. You have to time block for 4 separate things, not one. Your first time block is to plan the plan, okay? Your second time block is to plan to build the content. Or if it's not on social media, you're planning your GPS or your goals. And then the second part would be to actually build out the systems behind that. But we're going to talk about this only through social media today. But I want you to realize the 4 time block sections apply to your whole business. So when you're told to time block, it's not just one time block, by the way, it's likely 3 or 4. If that blew anybody's mind or made you realize something that you've never known or really hadn't thought of, put that in the chat box too. It's exciting to see how some of these small things make people think differently as a coach. But number 1, time block to plan the plan. What is your plan on social media to take territory, if you will? Number 2, time block has to be to build the content. So a separate time block every month or every week or every day, however often you do it, should be time blocked to actually build out the content that came from the plan. Number 3, then you're time blocking to run the play, separate time block. Now we've got 3 separate blocks in our schedule, okay? They don't have to be long. They can even be once a month. I'm just telling you, you have to have separate space. The 4th one is time block to follow up and make adjustments. Follow up and make adjustments. So I want you to have these also basic assumptions in the back of your head before we talk about the components and all of the things. Number 5, you have to be committed to posting a few times a day. Social media demands it today. As unfortunate as it is, if you're not willing to show up and be consistent and post often, the algorithms of social media kind of turn the dial down on you and people don't even see what you do in the first place. So it's something you just have to know is the game that you're playing. Number 6, the other thing you need to know so that you can have some basic assumptions to grow on these platforms is that you cannot, and I say cannot, and I truly mean that, you cannot only post about real estate. Years ago, when I first moved to North Carolina the first time, 2014, I kind of took the world by storm on the social media platform of Facebook in that community. And people were asking me what they were doing wrong. And the thing I told them, and I'll tell you guys this too, most people, and the actual statistic is about 94% of people in this country are not buying or selling or transacting real estate this year. 94% on average of people in our communities are not moving and they don't need you this year. So if the only thing you're posting about and you're unwilling to post about the rest of your life, if the only thing you're posting about is real estate, 94% of people who could see that don't need it. And so what do? They start to tune you out. They start to tune you out. You're not giving them value. They aren't going anywhere. They're not investing. They're not buying. They're not selling. No matter what you do, you guys, you cannot control that. You can't force someone to do that. What you can do instead, though, is to offer value and content outside of real estate that attracts people to you. I'm gonna let that sink in for a second because that is kind of the missing secret sauce piece to this whole thing. If it's not working for you, you have to let people into your whole life. That's kind of why the platforms exist in the first place. If that makes you uncomfortable, I am sorry, and I don't set the rules. I just know the rules and I play by them because this is the game I want to play. Okay, so some basic agreements there. Now, we're going to talk now about what are the actual 5 components of building an unshakable brand that's recognizable in your community. Number 1 is brand identity. Now, as I go over these, I want you guys to commit to, after this call, actually sitting with these questions and writing out some specifics for yourself. Number 1, what is your brand identity? The first thing the world sees when it comes to branding is the identity of the brand. That can be the logo, it can be the fonts, the filters that you use on your pictures, the colors. Essentially, this is the vibe. What is the overall vibe of the brand, and does it match or does it coincide with your audience? And I know that's a typo down there. Does it coincide with your audience? Number 2, what is the brand's purpose? This component is going to feel a little personal. It's supposed to. So the second component of an unshakable brand is that they all have a defined and communicatable purpose. Now, I say that because you can have purpose and reason and why in your heart all day long, and yet you don't attract people to that until you share it. So make sure that if you have found your why, which so many of us are told we need to do, that you can articulate that to the world around you such that they come your way. This is also the reason for the business to be a business in the first place. Why are you doing what you're doing? And what purpose does the brand serve in the world? And part 3, what problems do you solve? And when I say the brand, you guys, I mean you. If you are a solo agent, you are the brand, right? This is important to recognize. If you are on a team, you don't know these things, you need to go figure that out from your team lead, but you also need to understand what your own are, okay? Number 3, brand messaging. So the third component of an unshakable brand is brand messaging. And simply put, that is how your brand communicates what its purpose and value would be to the world around you. Ensure that you have strategy in place for how you're going to communicate with your audience and the communication channels. Now, I'm going to stop on that and we're going to talk about something for just a second. If you are a person who is like, I'm going to go all in with Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and YouTube, you can't actually be all in on 4 things. You're only 25% in. It doesn't work that way. What I would think about is, what is each one of those platforms? What's the vibe of the platform and what are they looking for? Here's an example. If you don't do well on video and you don't like to do video and you're not going to be consistent with video, TikTok is not the platform for you. Okay. If you're not going to live your world with visually appealing photographs, Instagram may not be the platform for you. If you're not willing to shoot video or do reel, Instagram may not be the platform for you. If you're not willing to do longer form video or mid form, like a 3-minute or so video, YouTube's probably not the platform for you. So when you think about what the communication channels should be for your brand, it's also what matches your own personality style. I started on Facebook. I built our team off of the back of Facebook. The other thing that I've realized is I'm more tuned into long-winded responses for things or explanations, whereas that doesn't work on TikTok. So I'm bringing that up because if you want to play in all these spaces, you need to understand who is on each platform, what's the type of person looking for in each platform. They're very different. They're not the same across all 4. So for example, if you're wanting to do how-to videos, YouTube would likely be a great platform for that option. If you're wanting to do quick snippet, short form stuff where it's very beautiful and you love taking photos and you want to show it for that, consider Instagram. But what I do want you guys to know is that the strategy for each one of those 4 platforms has to be different. What you're posting about has to feel different based on the goal of the platform itself. The goal of YouTube is not to compete with the grouping formats on Facebook. However, YouTube Shorts is designing itself to compete with TikTok and Instagram Reels. So in every one of these platforms, I'm not going to stay on this much longer. I don't want it to drown anyone. But every one of these platforms, the messaging has to be different because the audience on the platform is looking for something different, which is why they go there. So make sure that you understand that. So component number 1 is identity, 2 is purpose, and 3 is messaging. Number 4 is brand differentiation. So this is essentially how your brand shows up differently, or how is it different than other competitors in the industry space. So for example, my brand can be different than Coca-Cola because we're not competing in that space, but my brand has to be different from someone who is in my space in real estate right down the road. And I have to be able to talk about how things are different and what we do differently here. I also want to share this with you, and I hope this hurts no one's feelings, and I hope it wakes everyone up. We can no longer hang our value hat on selling homes for more money for less time than the competition, because how can you prove that? You can't. And that's no longer why people are choosing you. It used to be. The world has evolved and our messaging has to evolve as well. Because you're the number 1 agent in the city is no longer a reason for people to choose you. Now, the number 1 home buying segment right now goes back and forth, but it's getting to where it's pretty consistently millennials. Millennials care about your purpose on the planet, not how many homes you've sold. Okay? They care about what you're doing for the world around you, not how long you've been in the business. When someone tells me that, my first question is, why does that even matter? Why are we even talking about this? And I'm sharing that with you, not to be insulting. I'm sure there's 285 of you on here. Someone is mad at me right now. And at the same time, I'm here just to tell you the truth about how the platforms operate and what you need to do. Number one, how are you different if you're not allowed to talk about your production? You're not allowed to talk about your length of time in the business, and you're not allowed to talk about any awards that you've won. Write that down. What would make you different if you couldn't talk about your production, how long you've been in the business, or how many awards you've won? That is what you post about. That is a component of an unshakable brand. You guys, people don't care how much we rank in the industry anymore. Unless you truly are like number one for a significant reason, there are a lot of people who are just completely not even attached to that anymore. Society right now is recognizing that ego is the enemy, if you will. And so egotistical stats that you are flaunting actually turn a lot of people off these days. So you want to make sure that if that's what you want to do, I'm here to tell you do whatever you want. I just also want you to know there has to be another reason why you're different, or people they just kind of start to tune you out. Number 5, and then the last component of an unshakable brand, don't tune out. There's a whole another set of slides after this. I just wanted to give you the juice at the beginning. The last component of an unshakable brand is the experience. The experience for your brand is how your brand leaves people feeling once they've chosen to interact with you. How long does it take you to respond to messages on Facebook? How long does it take you to respond to concerns in your text messages? How do people feel when they meet you in public? When they see your billboards, how are they feeling when they see those? This could also be how you respond to consumers and how you put out print media, marketing materials, things like that. What's the experience when people find out that you are in their space, whether it's in their mailbox or what have you? The last thing that's not really a component, but it has to be said, is consistency. And we've already talked about that. This is exactly what it sounds like. Essentially, you need to commit to being consistent daily and answering the pain point questions all the time. You have to answer them all the time. If you do that, here's what I want you to hear. You're selling the path and the product, not you. On social media, you're selling the path and the product. You're not selling yourself. So we're going to transition for a second because these 8 elements actually take the 5 components a little bit deeper. It's just basically 8 tips for building a strong visual brand on social media. Now, why am I going down the path of a strong visual brand? Because most brands right now are becoming visual. It's something that people are encountering on social space, websites, television, whatever. So whether you're strong internally at this point isn't all that there is to this game. You also have to be strong visually, and you have to show up in a way that's going to catch people's attention. The source for these is at the bottom. So if you're like, where did she get this? Right at the bottom, take a screenshot. Number 1, keep it interesting. The content has to be visually appealing or something that others would want to share. So this is something where you would look at keeping the colors popping, the fonts readable, and the vibe has to be in line with your strategy. Number 2, make it relevant. And then this comes from a quote straight out of that website. It says, as we've discussed elsewhere, you should have a description of your ideal customer avatar before you start your social media campaigns. Everything you publish should be relevant to and aimed at that person. So I've already said that in a little bit of a different way, but I love the way that they put that. Number 3, make it high quality. Social media can be a very unforgiving space, and it doesn't ever go away, right? And right now, more than ever in years past, social media is a place that is demanding high standard of design. Now, and I say it's demanding that if you want to succeed at a high level. Number 4, keep it in line with your brand itself. So don't do things, even if they're high quality, you're not looking to do things if you're wanting to build a strong brand that go against the vibe or the voice or the values of the brand. Ensure that your content isn't contrasting against that, or it leaves people confused and they don't necessarily know what to do. Number 5, make it informative. When you're building strong visual content, you also need to make sure that it's informative and speaks to your audience. Most of the time, if you're informing people without asking for anything in return, it's going to go a long way. There's reciprocity there because they start to trust you. Number 6, make it emotional. And I like the egg thing. I'm sure everywhere in this country right now, eggs are a hot topic on social media. I saw a proof of funds the other day and it was like a whole hen house full of eggs. So anyway, we brought the eggs for emotion because it's making people emotional right now. But as they say in bold, logic makes you think and emotion makes you act. The more emotion you can invoke in a person based on the content you're building, the more they're going to be compelled to interact with you. And I'll share with you why interaction is the name of the game in the first place here in a minute. Number 7, make it clear. This particular one is about visual clarity, not about intellectual clarity. So for example, what this is talking about is you don't want to start posting pictures or visuals where there's writing all over it. The platforms, specifically Facebook and Instagram, want less than 20% of the space of the photo taken up by text. So think about that, because they're obviously the ones who are controlling what people see on that platform. They want the visual clarity because they want people to stay in the platform. Number 8, make it interactive. The more people that can interact with your brand and your posts, the more the ML, which is machine learning, the more the algorithm can rank your content as relevant. And we're going to talk about machine learning algorithm here in a second, and 4 ways to use it to your advantage. So first and foremost, just so you guys know, the algorithm now is called machine learning. And essentially what it does is just, I'm boiling this down to easy for sake of conversation here. It takes all the data, all the stuff, every comment, every share, every like, every post, how long you're sitting on a video, how often are you watching cat videos versus videos of other things? Are you watching the news, or are you watching funny things? It's basically taking all of the data points from your whole life on your phone and on social media, and then it's comparing that to the actual way you're interacting with each other on the social platform. So to make this easier to understand, and in the full course that I teach about this, we go into detail about machine learning, but I just don't have time here to do it. My husband and I don't actually ever see each other's posts on Facebook or Instagram, because we don't interact on the platform. We text each other, or we talk to each other here or on the phone. So what has happened over time is that these platforms have determined that he and I are not relevant to each other. But what's most interesting about that is we're married. Like, we are super relevant to each other, but the platform doesn't see that. So some of the ways to use the machine learning platform to your advantage are on the screen in front of you. But first and foremost, you need to understand that they're ranking everything that you do. They're ranking every share. They're ranking how often are you engaging with each person. And on average, somewhere around 7 to 10% of people on your friends list are actually seeing your posts. The rest of them have no clue that you've posted in the last 12 years. They have no idea because they don't see it. And I'm bringing that up because if you use some of these to your advantage, you can actually hack that system a little bit and start to get new people on your feed. And then you can get into the feeds of other people who haven't seen what you're posting in a long time. So number 1, interact with your social media friends list on a consistent basis. And that's everyone: brother, sister, aunt, uncle, mom, dad, friends, family, past life, people from college, whatever. Get on a schedule with that. You can use the DTD2 schedule from Bold, or another group coaching program that we have called Never Ending Referrals. It's the DTD2 program. It's basically a systematic way to work through everyone. But you're basically going through all of those people, messaging with them, commenting on their stuff, and you're working your way up to being more relevant to them according to the platform. Number 2, you could post and message people when they're online. They have a higher response rate that way, and that will also help you build awareness of what you're doing, which goes into the component of building a strong brand. Number 3, go live and post video frequently. The platforms love it. In the videos, ask people to interact with you. Just like I did with you at the beginning, how cold is it where you live? That didn't seem hard to do. So like 30 or 40 of you actually answered the question. It's the same on this. You're asking people to interact with you, because every time someone comments on what you do, shares what you do, interacts with what you do, your ranking in the machine learning algorithm is going up with that person. Okay. Number 4, use stories and reels in between when you're posting. I probably post 4 stories a day to every one actual post I make on Facebook. That is your opportunity for people to see behind the scenes a little bit, actually get to know what your daily life looks like and not just the highlight reel, and people are attracted to that. So we're going to do a recap in just a second, and I'm going to scroll back to some of the slides so you can screenshot. But here's the overall recap. So this is about your 5-ish minute warning. If you have questions you haven't put in the chat box that you think I can answer quickly, go ahead and do that. If not, I'm going to put my email address in there again, and you'll be able to email me whatever deeper questions you have. But first and foremost, I hope you guys took at least one thing out of here that you didn't already know or that you could improve on. And just to recap 4 things. Number 1, I want you to lay out what the 5 components of your brand are and actually spend time diving into and defining each one. I'm going to scroll back so you can take a screenshot of what they are, but I want you to actually spend time and space with those questions. Number 2, put together a system around content where it goes through the 4 types of time block. Time block for the plan, time block for the content creation, time block to run the plan, and time block to follow up and make adjustments. Number 3, make sure that you're blocking time to work the actual plans that you've made. There's nothing worse than having a really smart bookshelf that you've done nothing with, right? Number 4, use your social media to showcase yourself and your brand's value to the community. Remember, you guys, 94% of people in this country are not transacting in real estate this year. And if that's all you're posting and you're not letting them get to know you, you're kind of missing the boat. So the components of an unshakable brand, the first slide is on the screen, and I'm going to scroll through this and then I'll answer your questions as soon as I get back to that. I'm about to change the slide to the next one if you want to screenshot it, and then we'll go to the 8 and you can screenshot those if you need to. There's the first one, and you can also rewatch this if you'd like and kind of go back and do that. And there's the last one. All right, and then finally, as I go through and answer the questions, if you're interested at all in going on a deeper dive of this with me, we do an 8-week course here at MAPS that starts next week. It's on Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Central every single week for 8 weeks. You can actually scan that code and it'll take you exactly to the page that you would need to go to join that. You're more than welcome to, and if you are wanting to, you can use WEB15, WEB15, for a promo code for you guys for being on here with me today. So if you're welcome, if you want to do that, you're welcome to. And I'm going to go into this. So someone asked, how can you rewatch this? This will be within 24 hours or so. And by 24 hours, I mean business hours. So probably by Monday, this will be on the YouTube site for Fast Track at MAPS. I will also get a list of all of you, and I will personally email this out to you as soon as I see it come up on either Monday or Tuesday. The classes are about 45 minutes long, same format as this, Q&A at the end, and then they're all recorded. You do have access to the recordings for 2 months after the class is over, so if you miss some, you're welcome to do that. Should you maintain personal and team business pages? Share the business on the personal page. What's the best practice? So the best practice is that you actually do maintain a personal page and a page for your business. But I want you to think about your page for your business as a billboard, right? It is the proof of success. It is not where you're going to start and build the relationships. So the best practices for that are a lot of the posts that you're making about your personal life, even your business, like behind the scenes kind of things, or you touring homes. Those can go on your personal page as long as that's not everything you do. On your business page, it probably would want to look a little more professional. But what you're really wanting to drive to those business pages are reviews. A lot of people don't remember Facebook actually allows you to get reviews, and you should be putting that in there too, especially if you're wanting to build a big business on social media. Do multiple reels in one day overshadow content you really want people to see and actually interact with, like a contest? It really depends. So if you're on Instagram, multiple reels in one day, if you have them show up on your feed, it's actually not going to hurt anything for you. I wouldn't post them all in 5 minutes. I would strategically drip them throughout the day, because the way that it works is, let's say that you post something in the morning. By noon, that post, you guys, is so buried for most people because of all the other people posting between then and now that they're not really seeing it so much anymore. So if you have a contest or something that's driving business to you, I would post that when people are off work. They're not like, they're in the platform, because that's when they're most likely to look at it. So whatever time of day that is for your community, I would post that then. If you're posting funny stuff that people are going to watch and be like, oh, that's cute, and they can move on, maybe post that in the morning or in the afternoon. But if you're posting something that's driving business, I would do it when people are free to actually interact with you. Other than that, it doesn't really bury anything, but I wouldn't do them all stacked at the same exact time. Let's see. Is it possible to schedule stories or reels in Command? No, not right now. What is the name of the program that explains how to reach everyone? DTD2. So D and then T, D and then the number 2. It's Do the Database 2. It's found in bold right now and in the Never Ending Referrals MAPS group coaching course. Can all this be done with just a personal account or a business account important to have? I think I answered that. You should post multiple times a day. Was that on the same platform or different platforms or both? If you're going to go all in on a platform, you need to be posting multiple times a day on that platform. So for me, my big things are Facebook and Instagram. I post more on Facebook than I do on Instagram. I rarely post on TikTok. It's not my jam right now. So I'm not posting multiple times a day on TikTok, but I am on the other two. Yeah. So Graham posted, I will repost this real quick. So when the recording is out, and there are hundreds of recordings on this site, I just posted the YouTube link to where this will be, but you can also go on there now and watch the last two courses. I've done 2 courses in the last 30 days other than this one on very different components of all of this. So you can go back and watch. The promo code again for the course is web15, which I also just put in the chat box. If you have anything else, let me know. I don't see any other questions on here, but sometimes there's a lag. I'm going to go ahead and put my email address back in the chat box. If I didn't answer a question, that means I don't see it. Go ahead and resend that to deanawatson@kw.com. And I hope all of you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. And if you're at family reunion, I will be at either the MAPS booth or the KW military booth. You are more than welcome to come by and see me. And I appreciate all of you so much. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day and all of you get warm. And if you need a vacation, there are a few people here in Florida who would be willing to host you, it looks like. If you need a vacation from the cold, go south. Bye, you guys. Have a great weekend.